not ideal, but it came down to, well, I'm not going to go as the head coach of a place to go, because even though most people do that, and they spend a weekend somewhere in other professions and go to the schools and restaurants to get a feel for it, neighborhoods, and they make a decision, and sometimes, they take 4 months to relocate and stuff in the real world, and that doesn't happen. You get on a plane and you go. So I just thought it was really important when they offered, to have the family come down without me and get a feel for it. And it was very important, because that went a lot into the decision. I don't know that I could have made this. I don't know that I could have made the decision, or certainly couldn't have made it and felt good without everybody on board like it was, after going to multiple places and coming back and saying, hey, we're all in. We're all in to go to Baton Rouge and go to LSU.
Elaine.
Call a cop that you know, so they'll help you, because you personally know them, because you are leaving the state, and you got to call them, because you drive with your son, and you got to turn around, and people are like screaming at you, trying to run you off the road. I don't know what they're going to do, and so that affects you in that airport scene, and all the things being said. I understand it. It's the passion, but they're saying that about you, that you thought you did a really good job for 6 years for him. That affects you. And even on the plane down there, I'm kind of like, man, we made this decision, but God, I really, and I'm telling you, I landed last night. I can't even remember when it was, okay? We landed, about 24 hours ago. And when I got off that plane, and I saw the board there, and I saw the leadership, and I felt the power of this place. And then we get in the car, and as we're driving out, and there's the fans, like just all of them out there at the airport, and their excitement and their passion. And then the cars drive by as we're going to the office, and you go by Tiger Stadium, and it's lit up. And you're like, I absolutely made the right decision. And it all went away. Then you walk into the facility, and myself and the coaches, our general manager, like you walk in, and I'm like looking around, and I'm like, God, like it's like we're in the NFL. Like everything is so amazing in that facility, and it's so powerful. And the national championships and the Heisman trophies and the way the whole building's done, you're reminded you are at the elite program in all of college football, the same that those two coaches just told me, and reminded me. And then I was like, actually, we're going by Tiger Stadium. I called one person. I called Ed Ogeron. And I said, hey, man, all I can do is, man, this place just makes me want to talk like you right now. I did. I was like, we were in the car, and the kids were in there, and I was like, and the coaches, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like channeling Ed right now. I was like, I'm feeling him. Like, I rolled down the window, and I was like, go Tigers to the fans. And I'm like, so I called Ed. I said, I don't know what's going on, man, but I'm feeling you right now. And he's like, Coach, you're at the best place in America. So I feel that. So as I thought I would do, I have no idea what your question was. See, that's good planning that I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, just the structure you guys are going to have for this signing day.
Yes.
LSU introduce their 26th head coach in program history. Today, LSU, historic day, introduced their 26th head coach in program history. Lane Kiffin now follows on in a historic path we've seen for Nick Saban, a mentor of his, and of course, Coach O, someone he's staffed with before many times, and someone he even called the other day. We'll get into that. Or sorry, that would be today that he called him. We'll get into that in a second. And of course, Les Miles, Brian Kelly. It hasn't been like a ton of LSU head coaches football wise. There's been only a few guys in the last 30 something years. And even Brian Kelly, as quickly as he was ejected from being a head coach at LSU, he was still there for 4 seasons. Whereas other places, maybe you get 2. And this is not something that you see every day. This is not something that you see even every other year. This is something that's very rare for LSU. And not to mention a first-time athletic director, Verge Osberry, in an almost impossible situation. Really. Go get us the best coach in the country? Like, how? How's he supposed to do that when everyone knows that LSU has no institutional control at that point? You have no president. You have no athletic director. It looks like your Trump wannabe governor is trying to get involved in every single facet of the whole thing. It gets out of hand. Verge Osberry calms all that down the second President Rouse is hired, and Rouse gives him the keys to the kingdom. And it's very interesting at the very beginning of this press conference when President Rouse says this.
If I did not save my final message of appreciation to someone who has given decades of his life to this athletics department, to a leader who truly embodies what it means to be an LSU Tiger. Just a few short weeks ago, in my first meeting with our athletic director, I talked a great deal about the need for structure, accountability, and measuring ourselves against only the best. Our athletic director responded by telling me he would be accountable for finding the best football coach in America. Verge, you are a man of your word, and you have certainly delivered on that promise today. Ladies and gentlemen,
that just goes to just tell you, Verge, he calls him the architect of going and at LSU's most trying moment that I've seen in a while. You can argue 2021, getting rid of Coach O and kind of the uncertainty of that situation, but you just won a national championship 2 years recently, and you still had Scott Woodward. There was no instability at the top, all this stuff. There was no just major questions about everything. And now you see kind of how this worked. Governor Landry, for all of people, wanting to fault him and criticize him, he made the right move here. Hiring Rouse. Rouse comes in and immediately goes from Verge Osberry being interim athletic director to being permanent athletic director. And I was a little stunned by his complete and sudden confidence in Verge Osberry. I was kind of like, whoa. And I had some questions about Verge Osberry myself. There's those Title IX things that happened in the past, and his role in that. And it's not like he had a diabolical role of any sort, but it was a role where did he report it properly? That type of stuff with Drake Davis, and I think from what I remember, he got a slap on the wrist with the with his punishment, like a 30-day suspension or something. And obviously not the Les Miles of the situation where, the true bad guy. And so I still had some concerns about Verge Osbury. Like, where's this going to go? He's the athletic director. Let's see how this goes. And I also, though, knew, and I was very confident in this, I knew that Verge Osbury, if there was going to be any athletic director that was going to have any chance of getting Nick Saban, it was actually surprisingly going to be Verge Osbury to get Saban out of retirement. And then you go, okay, well, no chance of getting Saban out of retirement. LSU tried that. What's the second option? Who's like the real number one option here? Saban's kind of a pipe dream, golden age of a long forgotten time kind of being rekindled. Could that even work? Should that even work? Will it work? Is it even possible? All those questions. But then the reality sits in, and the reality is you got to hire Lane Kiffin. He's the best coach in college football. And then you've got to retain guys like Blake Baker, Corey Raymond, Frank Wilson, the big pieces to this organization, to this roster, to this squad, to the staff. And Lane Kiffin was the big fish, and LSU, number one target, very simple, said, we will wait. We will play the long game with you, Lane, while Ole Miss is breathing down your neck. Keith Carter is wanting to freaking have some like stab off showdown, a knife fight on like a secluded island somewhere where it's like one of us will die and drink the other's blood. There will be some bloodletting showdown, some weird, dark kind of behavior going on with Ole Miss. Very insecure, very creepy, very weird, hiding behind the trash cans type of behavior. Lane, what you doing? Are you talking to the other teams? And you got the Florida fans being literally psychotic. It was obvious Lane Kiffin was going to come to LSU just because of this vibe. Because LSU said, we are willing to wait for you while all of these different parties are going nuts. LSU, Verge Osbury was going to take a gamble here. He took a gamble. We're going to wait. Even if you're going to coach into the playoffs, we are willing to wait for you. And I think that's the right move. It could have blown up in Verge Osbury's face, and we could all say it was the wrong move. You know what? He had the chance to get Lane Kiffin at this point in Kiffin's career, where he's everything you thought Brian Kelly was. Like everything Brian Kelly was propped up to be by the PR machine. When he arrived at LSU. Oh, he's going to be the second coming of Saban. Oh, if he just gets the resources. No. Brian Kelly was never that good of a coach. He was never a specialist even. He was never really a football guy, more of a politician, a CEO. Lane Kiffin's a football guy. And he comes into LSU, and you're going to give him the keys to the kingdom. And everything has this Saban blessing, Saban vibe, Saban way about it, where they are looking back on how to go forward, which is very strange. You think, how are you, going to look to the era of Saban or Pete Carroll's USC to go forward into this, next phase for LSU and win in the NIL era? And it's quite simply, let's be real here. Let's be adults here. Obviously, players were being paid back in the day, and this is how it was sold. It wasn't just hey, money, 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 money. It was just like Lane Kiffin said on the podium today. He said, "Come play in my system. Come win with championships with me. Be known as a winner and dominate in my system. We'll make you a superstar because we're going to give you the ball like 15 times a freaking game." And Lane Kiffin does. He feeds his guys. He feeds his dudes. You wouldn't have seen, Malik Neighbors like 2022, how he barely got it over 1,000 yards. And it was through like the sheer will of the man. Never. He would have broken that record twice with Lane Kiffin coaching him. So my point is that you're going to get him feeding your best guys as well. That's kind of in his doctrine. And there's all these elements here that are old school, looking forward to the new school of like, we're going to sell the brand of LSU to like, bro, this is the vehicle that will further your life. This is the vehicle that will like launch you into the stratosphere. Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I mean, just right there. And then you want to go to other sports. Paul Skeens. I mean, Livy Dunn, what she's done. You really can go on and on and on. Angel Reese, Flauget. I mean, there are levels to this. And you take a guy like Lane Kiffin, a personality like Lane Kiffin, you give him the keys to the kingdom at LSU. I really do think, unless personal stuff happens and things that LSU can't really control occur, there's only one way for this to go. This should really be a success after what we've seen here today. We know Kiffin's going to do whatever he can to keep Blake Baker. That's a fantastic scene right there. We know Pete Golding won't be a part of it. That's good for me right there. I feel very good about those two things right there. But I have heard that Blake Baker will interview for the Tulane job. I mean, it could be breaking right now, something that may be different there. But from some of the people I talked to, defensive players for LSU, family members of defensive players for LSU as well, they were very, very high on the idea of Kiffin and him retaining Blake Baker, that tandem together being something they want to stay for. But I mean, just a very, very well executed plan by LSU to get Lane Kiffin, because they made sure he knew they would be waiting. He could take his time with this decision while everyone else was blowing him up. People trying to run him off the road, all this crazy shit. And then he comes to LSU and it's home in a way.
Like the entire state of everybody that I talked to at some point, okay, was aligned that the number one thing in this state is to get LSU football back to the championship level where it was at before. That's very unique to have everyone in the state, okay, on the same page to get the same thing done. And so it's pretty awesome. And again, it's why we went through a really challenging time and a really difficult decision, and a great place where we were at, and great support to have to make the decision to leave there, okay, as over the 6 years there. A lot of opportunities to leave, including in this conference, very prominent programs, and never did. And it came down to that at the end of the day. The only one we were leaving for was once we felt this alignment and passion at LSU.
And there's Kiffin, saying one of the big reasons why him and his family made the decision to go to LSU, and he made that very clear in his press conferences, that his family played a big role in this decision. And you can tell that by the way his son Knox, excited to be going to U High, excited for everything that's, on the horizon for his future. And then Landry, she's going out with a linebacker who's starting for LSU and is one of the best players in the country in Whit Weeks. So you've got some significant ties here, and you've got some really good vibes here from Lane Kiffin. This was so strange to see Lane Kiffin as LSU's head coach. I mean, does anyone think for a second, is this happening? Is this is surreal? Because it's not that, like, Kiffin hasn't won a championship as head coach. He's won 3 as an assistant. He's been part of some very fabled, very unbelievably legendary offenses and some teams. He's been a key part of mentoring and developing some of the greatest players of our time, Reggie Bush, the Matt Leinerts of our, the list goes on. And he, as we have said so many times when we've been talking about this possibility and then what became reality of LSU getting Lane Kiffin as their head coach, I continue to say this man will maximize what is at his disposal. And you're talking about a man who has been able to make Matt Corral into a guy who was flirting with being a first round top 10, top 20 pick before his broken leg in that Sugar Bowl. He really, Trinidad, D2 quarterback was all we heard. And then he lit LSU up, absolutely destroyed LSU's unbelievable offense, lit us up. So there are levels to this where Kiffin knows what to do with quarterbacks, but he knows what to do with the running game, and he knows what to do with speedy skill position guys. And now you've started to see him figured out of who to hire defensively and who to get on his staff defensively to really kind of make that shit work, because Kiffin could not figure that out for a long time. His defenses were really soft, and they would just be all out blitzing and just crazy aggressive because they would just try and cause chaos just to make plays, because that's all they could really do. And they didn't really care if they gave up points because, well, our offense will put up 50, 60, and a lot of shootout games in some of Kiffin's prior stops. With Ole Miss over the last 3 years, you've really seen him figure this out. Like, their defenses have been awesome. Way better than Ole Miss defenses have ever been before. And not only that, but they were way better than LSU defenses in that era until this season. This season was the LSU defense. That was a real LSU defense. This last season with Blake Baker, which is why it's very, very important to keep Blake Baker around. And it's just very relieving to hear what we're seeing from Lane Kiffin. Not only what we saw from the press conference, this kind of smooth operating, very real, very human. Like, I'm going to tell you this sucked. I'm going to tell you that this journey to try and get to this point was trying, but we're going to try and do what we can now to make to win here. He was full of jokes. He got people clapping at a few times. Some of the L Club people, some of the booster people clapping and being like, wow. He talked about Pete Carroll guiding him to be LSU's next head coach. He basically said, if you weren't in the state of Mississippi, you were telling me to take the LSU job. Everybody in Mississippi, stay at Ole Miss, stay at Ole Miss. Of course, there's a few of those ESPN people who just hate LSU, who are like, stay at Ole Miss, stay at Ole Miss. Paul Feinbaum, I think, is one of them as well, who is stay at Ole Miss, And we love Paul, but he was stay at Ole Miss and still looks very disappointed in Kiffin for this move. But he took this chance because of, a lot of that mentorship guiding him in that direction as well.
Call a cop that you know, so they'll help you, because you personally know him.
An NIL plan in this new true third-party NIL era?
Trying to find that clip.
If it I
Here we go.
All those people, impact all those people, be impacted by all those people at the different places. And so as I thought about that, even with the best 6 years, it became apparent to me what the decision was. My journey has been unique, to say the least, but I believe everything that I've been through has prepared me for this moment at this place right now. I also believe everything happened exactly how it was supposed to happen, when it was supposed to happen. And that'll be clear someday, that all of it did. Our program here at LSU will be designed top to bottom to be the #1 destination for elite players in all of America. That's why we're here. Our immediate priority is assembling the best staff in the country and securing top talent. The mission is simple: bring the best players in the country to LSU. And it starts right here in the state of Louisiana.
Why you don't?
To win big, you are going to regret it if you don't take the shot and you don't go to LSU. It's the best job in America with the best resources, and to win it. And it's obviously been done here before by a number of people. And you know, Pete Carroll really he told me, you know, that he always told my dad that he'd look out for me. And so when we were talking, he really channeled him, you know, from knowing him for so long, and he said this is exactly what he would do. He would tell you, boy, go get it, go for it. And you know, Coach Saban kind of coached at another place in this conference, so I can't really say exactly what he said, but I'll say I think the world of Coach Saban, and I respect him, and so there's a reason I'm here.
Right after Lane said that, everyone applauded. The entire room started applauding, and it didn't feel like, okay, get ready to end, clap. It felt like just a spontaneous moment, because even I was like, damn, that's impressive. You know, Brian Kelly had an impressive few speeches when he first joined LSU in his first press conference, but it was an impressive speech, kind of like an impressive presentation, mechanical, you know, very sterile. With Lane Kiffin, you could kind of sense the guy's humanity. You could really smell the sleepless nights off of him, the tossing and turning, the what the hell do I do here that he was feeling over the last not just 48 hours, but a couple weeks here. This has gone on for longer than that. This has been going on for at least 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And for LSU fans, LSU media who really dig into this stuff, since, you know, a few days before that A&M game, where everyone kind of knew this could get out of control and we could be talking about Brian Kelly getting fired after if LSU get destroyed by A&M. And sure enough, there we are. How will Kiffin fare at LSU? That is such an interesting debate, interesting question for the future, because many people said, oh, well, you know, I felt like this. Even I felt this. I felt that even in spite of Brian Kelly, LSU will still win a championship, because we're going to have Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas Jr., you know, Mason Smith, Micaiah Wingo, you know, the list goes on and on of all these top guys on your roster. Guys that should have been superstars at LSU and maybe didn't fulfill their potential. Maybe some of them were absolute superstars at LSU, but you didn't win a national championship like you should have with those guys. Some of those guys were guys, I'm not even talking about just the guys that I you know, named, but there's a lot of guys that LSU have wasted over the last 5-6 years. And we've talked about this at length, that Kiffin would know how to actually maximize a lot of this talent at his disposal here in Baton Rouge. And, it's very telling that the second he is off that plane after the crazy hell that he's been through, it's to hang out with Lamar Brown, the number one recruit in the country, absolutely fresh off of an unbelievable playoff game where he had 2 strip sacks in the same game, was just an absolute freak, wrecking ball. I love talking to Lamar. Lamar's such an awesome kid, and he's going to be a great Tiger. And Kiffin going right off the plane to, talking to Verge, talking to President Rouse, talking to the donors, some of these people, and then goes straight to the recruiting like he should. That's incredible, because our last coach would have gone straight to bed, then straight to tea time, then straight to some other, political function. Oh, another press conference to do to get the media on my side, whatever, and of course that's what happened today for Lane Kiffin. But you're not going to see too much of that political theater. This is a football guy who's going to get down to the business of winning football games. And that's why LSU hired him. And that's why Lane Kiffin joined LSU, because LSU's athletic department wants to get back to that business fully with the football program. And now LSU's head coach has every incentive within that contract as well, to be really driven to that end, because Lane Kiffin now has a career-defining opportunity to become one of the great coaches in the history of college football. Because already people would talk, if Lane Kiffin had passed away 4 weeks ago, people would already talk about him as one of the legendary, iconic play callers, one of the great offensive minds of the game. They would talk about his father winning a Super Bowl and kind of the lineage of him coming from that, the Kiffin family, and winning in the national championship as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach behind Heisman winner Matt Leinart, winning the national championship with them and then losing another title game in probably the greatest college football game ever in that 2006 Rose Bowl against Texas, in which Kiffin was faultless for that game. Actually, it was some of the defense for USC that cost them that game, obviously. Couldn't stop Vince Young, but more than that, couldn't stop anything else. You have this history of Kiffin already. He has been to some of the great stops and been part of some of the great dynasties in college football. Alabama with Saban. Won a title over Clemson in a great game. And then the next year, after winning the semifinal in a way that Saban did not approve of, he could tell that Kiffin was distracted. He fired Lane Kiffin when he was about to become the Florida Atlantic coach and would not let him coach in that national championship game. Steve Sarkisian does. And you have Alabama losing that title game to Clemson by 4 points. Kiffin, not a part of that. Like he's already had a, Oliver Stone-esque any given Sunday type battle for the soul of a football organization against Al Davis in his career at the Oakland Raiders. He's already had that kind of any given Sunday-esque career arc as the youngest coach, and he's going against the aging owner who's just a crazy character, and him and Al Davis are going head to head. I mean, it's crazy what he's gone through. He's had an SEC city, an entire SEC city trying to kill him, trying to chase him down when he was leaving town in Tennessee. He gets his dream job at USC, and Pat Hayden fires his ass on the tarmac. And they leave on a plane with Kiffin's bags. He's left at the airport, and they're leaving with his bags. He's had some of the most crazy, most comical, most ingrained football stops a coach can have in college football or NFL history, just football history in general. Kiffin has been all over, and he has not won a championship, though. This season, you feel like that opportunity was taken from him by Ole Miss. And not only just Ole Miss, but let's also say the calendar. College football and how it's organized and how it's run, and the calendar itself really took away that opportunity from him. Because, I doubt Ole Miss really enjoyed firing him either. I doubt they've enjoyed firing him. Knowing the opportunity they're probably not going to have now without him coaching their team. And now Kiffin comes to LSU, and there's no more thinking about Ole Miss. There's no more thinking about what could have been. Or he knows now what is there at his disposal, what LSU is all about. And the organization around Brian Kelly was unbelievable. It's Brian Kelly who made LSU a stinker during that time. You give Kiffin that opportunity, the same one that Brian Kelly had. You give Lane Kiffin that same opportunity that Brian Kelly had. You are going to see exponential results, especially if he's able to retain Blake Baker. I'm a big believer in him being able to retain Blake Baker. And what's great is, whether it was reporting from Matt Zenitz, whether it was LouisianaSports.net run by Matt Moscona, or it was us and the source that we have telling us, Lane Kiffin is doing everything he can to keep Blake Baker. And Blake Baker is very interested in staying. However, we know that he will be interested in hearing what Tulane have to say and where, the direction Tulane are going. And Blake Baker has interviewed for that Tulane job. Let's see here. Let's see here. Let me just read this real quick. So a lot of the staff have until tonight to figure out if they're going to come follow Lane Kiffin. But there's a big push for Kiffin to retain Blake Baker at LSU. But here's the thing. Garland Gillen, actually, we'll give him the credit because it's quite obvious he reported this. Garland Gillen, someone who I've met before, absolutely love this guy. New Orleans TV guy. He says Baker is interviewing for the open Tulane job. He is in New Orleans today interviewing for the Tulane head coaching vacancy. Gillen posted on X. So LSU are going to try and retain Blake Baker, but is that going to be possible? Maybe not. Let's play another from Lane Kiffin's really interesting press conference.
Not ideal, but it came down to, well, I'm not going to go as the head coach of a place to go, because even though most people do that and they spend a weekend somewhere in other professions and go to the schools and restaurants to get a feel for it in neighborhoods, and they make a decision, and some call it cop that so they'll help you.
An NIL plan in this new.
Okay. Let me introduce. Here's the clip I really want to show. Matt Moscona asks him about the NIL package from LSU and about their plan for him financially. And Kiffin goes on a really hilarious, bizarre rant that leads off, kickstarts with him talking about how he doesn't even know the numbers of his own contracts. I highly doubt that, but um, highly doubt that. Like, come on, Lane. But still, the rant is funny.
An NIL plan in this new true third-party NIL era factor into your decision? And what can you share with us about the plan LSU laid out for you?
Yeah, great question. You know, in that, when you talk about the, 4 places and making a decision, okay? I said through the process, okay, I'm never going to make a decision on money. And I'm telling you right now, I don't know what my contract is here. That's not very financially responsible, okay? I'm sure it's really good, okay?
You can hear the folks
I
laughing.
don't know what it is, nor did I know at the other places what the numbers were. Because I said in the beginning, I told Jimmy Sexton, don't tell me the numbers, okay? I want to make a decision that has nothing to do with money for me. Now, tell me the numbers in the plan for what the money is for the players. Because that's everything in that area to me, okay? Not what I make, what they make, to understand how can you build this. And if you're going to make a change and you're going to move and all these people are going to move and you're going to do all this and go through all that, which was a very challenging, obviously, last 48 hours, in a lot of ways sucked. It's the only way I can describe it. It sucked for a lot of people. And there was no way to possibly do it, in my opinion, any better than we did from a timing standpoint, because it's a bad scheduling system of how it's set up, and eventually, hopefully, it gets like the NFL where you can't do that in the season and don't have to make those decisions. But in that, it was very important and very critical, and Verge and his team had a really, really good plan, and even talked to some donors that are part of that plan here to see exactly how does that work. And there's a great plan here. There's a great plan of how we can come together with what we bring and what players around the country want to play for us and play in our systems, and then have that support to be able to do that so that they want to play for us and they get taken care of financially, which obviously nowadays is the world of college football, and it's very important and critical to them, which it should be. And this was the best setup. So that definitely played a factor into it. Because I don't care what your systems are, without good players, they don't work. So I actually asked today about my contract, not the numbers, I still don't know them. And I said, hey, just in case I get asked on it. And he said, basically, all 4 were extremely similar, okay, contracts for me. But in the process of figuring out the NIL packages, those were not similar. Those were not the same. And that's a big part of it.
There you go. I mean, so many people said that the NIL packages were close, and the NIL packages and all this. They weren't anywhere close to what LSU were proposing, what they had invested already, what they had ready to go. It seemed like the boosters knew getting Lane Kiffin to LSU, their money would actually count. Finally, the money that they donated to LSU into getting these top players and maximizing that top talent and seeing it produced on the field in front of them, that Lane Kiffin was the guy to go get in this era to make that happen. He's got that professional vibe while also has that college pedigree, and he's always had it. this is the way that LSU can finally put it together the way that has been envisioned for years. You know, since the dawn of the NIL era, it was like, how does LSU go forward into this, new era? We don't have the people with that type of money. Louisiana's poor. I heard that so much. I heard that from so many just foolish people from Louisiana. A lot of these people from Louisiana were telling me that. And I'm like, brother, every time I go to Louisiana, I'm going to someone who's pretty well off, someone who's a lot more well off than I am. And we're staying at their place. We're seeing what their place is about. We're riding in their car. We're having a great old time with them. We're meeting their kids. We're going to the games. We're having dinner at these very expensive places, and they're from Louisiana. And there's a lot of these type of people. Some of their sons play for LSU. Some of their daughters play for LSU and other sports. It's, to say that Louisiana, it's Louisiana, second most poverty-stricken state in the country. It must be just full of poor people. It's so not true. And here's the thing that you will find: poor, rich, whatever level economically, all of those people, as Kiffin said, want one thing, like outside of the health and safety and well-being of their family. It's for LSU to play like fighting tigers and to win national championships, and for the head coach to earn every dollar that he's paid by working his ass off to produce that. Lane Kiffin is going to do that. I really do believe that. I I had one vision about Brian Kelly until you actually saw him in action, and then it became quite another. It was like, wow, a lot of the stuff I had heard is actually true, but this is even a far worse situation, because secretly, and a lot of people kind of felt secretive about this fact, but we were not ever secretive about this fact. We took a lot of flack for saying it, for pointing it out. Brian Kelly was a lazy sod. He was a lazy bastard, especially with how much you're paid and driving the black Tesla, everything. Like, he was a lazy guy. And Lane Kiffin, whether he wins, whether he loses, whether he's extremely successful at LSU or not, I know he's at least going to give it his all. I know that Lane Kiffin is at least going to give this his best shot, and he's going to try and put together the best staff in the country. He's going to try and put together the best roster in the country. And he's really going to try and activate and take advantage of the resources and the possibilities at LSU that other coaches just haven't, taken full advantage of. Ed Orgeron won a national championship, had the greatest ever team at LSU, and he was out in how many years? 4 years he was gone. Like, that guy had a chance to really build a long-lasting dynasty there. Les Miles, if he could have just found an offensive coordinator that could have really fit with him and really could have said, Les, get off my ass. Your system sucks. You let Gary Croton run his own shit half the time in 07. That's why you won the Natty that year. Get off my ass. You couldn't cross the half-field line in the last title game. You need to listen to some better offensive minds. Maybe Les Miles could have coached LSU for more than a decade or two. You really feel like alignment, personality, and of course winning. It means everything at LSU. And Lane Kiffin has that vibe of someone who could coach at LSU for a long time. We could also see him get LSU right to that doorstep, win a championship or come close, and then goes packing for an NFL job. We could see that too. But as long as he comes into LSU and makes us a contender, maximizes the talent that comes in and out of LSU every single season, that guys that we see completely wasted by the coaching staffs of yesteryear, guys that were completely, just how did we not turn Kayshon Boutte into an absolute all-American freak show? A guy like Lane Kiffin would have done that with a guy like Kayshon. You're not going to lose these opportunities when you have top elite talent and you're going to maximize them and get the best out of them. And then some things in football, as you know, is very much a case of roll the dice. We've done this as well as we can, and now there has to be a little bit of luck going your way as well. That's what football's about, especially college football. You've really got to work for that luck, and then hopefully you get the spin of the ball a few ways here or there. You're going to need it. You great teams always need that, just a little bit of a luck. And Kiffin's been at times a very unlucky loser in some of these games. But we also forget kind of where he comes from and kind of what was the blood that kind of was embedded in him from birth. And that's a dude like Monte Kiffin, who built possibly the greatest defensive dynasty in football history with the Tampa Bay Bucks. And they, capped it all off with that Super Bowl win. Should have been multiple Super Bowls for that team, but they did get the job done. And that team is just littered with superstars, and he's around that type of a group. And then, bam, what happens right after? Right during the same time, Kiffin is quarterback's coach for Pete Carroll's USC, who are, winning Rose Bowls and ascending. Carson Palmer. And then Matt Leinart comes in. Reggie Bush. Steve Smith. I mean, the list goes, Dwayne Jarrett, the list goes on of absolute freaks. 2,000-yard backs. Who is it? Lendell White? Yeah. Am I saying that name right? Lendell White. The other, there's Reggie Bush and there was Lendell White, right? I don't think I'm getting that wrong. Let me make sure that. Yeah, Lendell White. Man, you did not want to tackle that dude. He was going to pound the shit out of you. Absolute freak of nature, Lendell White. Man, absolutely love Lendell White. He was something else. Him, Reggie Bush, 2,000-yard, and that's the thing. Kiffin is going to bring back that power running game to LSU. LSU have been without that power running game for a long time. We haven't had a good offensive line in a few years. We've been able to recruit them. We haven't been able to develop them. I really hope we can retain as many of these guys as possible on this roster. There's a few I wouldn't mind losing. Palma Banga, DJ Chester, a few here or there. But Solomon Thomas, Carius Kern, there's a few other guys that I just I really want to see what they're about. Cohen Eccles, I really want to keep those guys. Specifically, Tyree Adams. You really want to hold on to those guys because I think development under someone else, they're gonna activate. Boom, and LSU can hopefully get back to running the football like they should, and theoretically, that's what's going to happen. You give Lane Kiffin, say Kawan Lacey comes over from Ole Miss, but even if you just give him the current roster at LSU, even if you just give him, Harlem Berry, Caden Durham, yeah, I think he's going to do something special with a guy like Harlem Berry. I think he's going to do something special with a guy like Caden Durham. With that running game at LSU, exponentially, we're going to see that raise up under Lane Kiffin. I really do believe that. I really do think you're going to see Kiffin taking advantage of that opportunity for LSU to hit that next level. We've had good running backs. We haven't maximized them. We've had, top 5 drafted offensive linemen. We had guys like Emory Jones, Garrett Dellinger, and Charles Turner, Miles Frazier. We could have made these guys into a lot better offensive linemen. We could have prepared them for the NFL in a lot better ways under Kiffin as well. And so I feel like across the board, as long as he can keep some type of hold on the defensive continuity and the defensive brilliance you've seen at LSU, specifically in 2025 under Blake Baker, then Kiffin is a rocket ready to go for the stratosphere. Because year to year, there's no Nick Saban anymore. There's no Kirby Smart like dominating with Georgia year in, year out. Yes, they're in the SEC title game again. When aren't they? But I don't really feel like they're that much of a threat anymore. Kalen DeBoer, his team can't really decide if they really like winning or not. And we haven't really seen him become a winner in Alabama. Yes, second year, been to the playoff before, so more success than others, but we'll see here. Alabama's entitlement knows no bounds, but Kalen DeBoer has to win a title or bust pretty much every season, and he knows that. You have a weaker landscape in college football, ripe for LSU to really take advantage of this moment with Lane Kiffin and really take over the college football landscape. Because LSU can sell the branding. Easy. There's no one cooler than Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. Whoever you are, you're going to love someone there. Paul Skeens. Fear the Beard, Brian Wilson. Like, there's so much personality and vibe in LSU, in all of these athletes. It's going to attract so many people in the transfer portal, which is where Kiffin did a lot of work, got a lot of work done over the last few years, bringing them to Ole Miss. Imagine how easy it's going to be for him to bring them to Baton Rouge. I really have high hopes for Lane Kiffin in this job, and I really feel like this is the smart move. And however this works, it's up to Verge Osbury and President Rouse to really be there for Kiffin and guide him through this whole thing. But it's also, as they said, up to Lane Kiffin. They're just gonna leave him alone and let him coach his team and let him sink or swim in a way. Like the pressure is there. The pressure is there, no matter what you think. I mean, in the photo right here, a lot of the photo, they're smiling, doing all this stuff. And then you can see the smile fade more than a few times with Kiffin's just pure exhaustion written all over his face. Just pure exhaustion. Pure, just like, holy shit. Like, so much craziness has gone on. It's been a very wild 4 weeks in LSU history. And I just had a feeling LSU was going to get this done. But you got this done before December. I mean, what's today? December 1st? I mean, you got this whole thing. You announced him on December 1st. You fired Kelly on October 26th. And then you hired Lane Kiffin while his team is in the playoff with an 11-1 record. And have him announced on December 1st. Verge Osbury, take a freaking bow, my man. Incredible job. Incredible job by Verge Osbury. Incredible job by President Rouse. I already like the guy. Just hearing him speak, the little I have, he's got a great vibe about him. Love how Southern Louisiana he is. Kiffin is just fit for this moment. He's fit for this stage. He's fit for this place. He's fit for this moment. I think this is the right move for LSU. I'd be shocked if this doesn't end in at least strong success on the field. Whether that's national championships, I mean, it should be. Lane Kiffin should be delivering a national championship or two in this tenure with all that he will be given, all that he will be provided. But sometimes these things aren't given or written in the sky. Paul Tarver, my man, says Tigers close the deal. Woohoo! Hello, revived offense and in-game management. You know, Kiffin's had issues with that. He's had issues with that too. But they're not as bad as we saw with every single post-timeout penalty or dead ball timeout by Brian Kelly. I mean, it was almost like a play call. It was getting obscene. Everybody, tell me what you think about Lane Kiffin being hired as LSU's new head coach. Let me know what you think, and we'll be firing up an article about all of this, and we're gonna try and make it as epic as we possibly can. So look out for that article. I think we're gonna try and make it a must read. We're gonna do our best. Everybody, go Tigers! What a historic day.
Not ideal, but it came down to, well, I'm not going to go as the head coach of a place to go, because even though most people do that, and they spend a weekend somewhere in other professions and go to the schools and restaurants to get a feel for it, neighborhoods, and they make a decision. And sometimes, they take 4 months to relocate and stuff in the real world. And that doesn't happen. You get on a plane and you go. So I just thought it was really important when they offered, to have the family come down without me and get a feel for it. And it was very important, because that went a lot into the decision. I don't know that I could have made this. I don't know that I could have made the decision, or certainly couldn't have made it and felt good without everybody on board like it was, after going to multiple places and coming back and saying, hey, we're all in. We're all in to go to Baton Rouge and go to LSU. Call a cop that you know, so they'll help you, because you personally know them, because you are leaving the state, and you got to call them, because you drive with your son, and you got to turn around, and people are like screaming at you, trying to run you off the road. I don't know what they're going to do, and so that affects you in that airport scene and all the things being said. I understand it. It's the passion, but they're saying that about you, that you thought you did a really good job for 6 years for them. That affects you. And even on the plane down there, I'm kind of like, man, we made this decision, but God, I really, and I'm telling you, I landed last night. I can't even remember when it was, okay? We landed, about 24 hours ago. And when I got off that plane, and I saw the board there, and I saw the leadership, and I felt the power of this place. And then we get in the car, and as we're driving out, and there's the fans, like just all of them out there at the airport, and their excitement and their passion. And then the cars drive by as we're going to the office, and you go by Tiger Stadium, and it's lit up. And you're like, I absolutely made the right decision. And it all went away. Then you walk into the facility, and myself and the coaches, our general manager, like you walk in, and I'm like looking around, and I'm like, God, like it's like we're in the NFL. Like everything is so amazing in that facility, and it's so powerful. And the national championships and the Heisman trophies and the way the whole building's done, you're reminded you are at the elite program in all of college football, the same that those two coaches just told me and reminded me. And then I was like, actually, we're going by Tiger Stadium. I called one person. I called Ed Ogeron. And I said, hey, man, all I can do is, man, this place just makes me want to talk like you right now. I did. I was like, we were in the car, and the kids were in there, and I was like, And the coaches, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like channeling Ed right now. I was like, I'm feeling him. Like, I rolled down the window, and I was like, go Tigers to the fans. And I'm like, so I called Ed. I said, I don't know what's going on, man, but I'm feeling you right now. And he's like, Coach, you're at the best place in America. So I feel that. So as I thought I would do, I have no idea what your question was. See, that's good planning that I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, just the structure you guys are going to have for this signing day.
Yes.